You're watching the Global Science Show. Rhys Phillips here with you for the next few minutes. And I'd like to take the time to talk to you about a subject very close to my heart. I'm going to start with a quote. Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening. Now, of course, that's a very famous line from the Queen #1 hit Bohemian Rhapsody, written by the late, great Freddie Mercury. But what I want to know is that statement real, or is it just fantasy? That will test your knowledge of Bohemian Rhapsody lyrics. So I've worked in the aerospace industry for the last just over 10 years, and I've been working in the field of electromagnetics, or you might say the electromagnetics field, doing research into topics including lightning. And what I want to do today is to talk to you a little bit about what lightning is, how it's formed, and why we care about it in aerospace. So basically, how does it interact with aeroplanes? Now, lightning is a static discharge, so it's a form of static electricity. And what better way to remind ourselves of how static electricity works than with our good trusty friend, the balloon. So this balloon currently has roughly 50% positive charge and 50% negative charge, so it's neutral. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rub this balloon on my t-shirt, and I will remove the negative charge from my t-shirt, making the balloon negatively charged. Okay, so this is now negatively charged. Of course, you all know what's going to happen next. I'm now going to rub it on my head. And I'm going to lift this up. And of course, you can see that my hair sticks to the balloon. Some might say it's an improvement. So that we know is static electricity, but what's actually happening there? Well, because the balloon has become negatively charged, if you think about magnets, north poles and south poles are attracted to each other. The same poles will repel each other. Well, it's the same with electrical charge. Positive and negative charges are attracted, but the same charges repel. In this case, because this is negative, the positive charges in my hair rush to the surface of my hair because they're attracted to the negative charge in the balloon. Now, this is actually very similar to how lightning works. Inside a cloud, we have lots of particles, dust and ice and water that are melting and freezing and moving all around through different air currents, and there's collisions there, and when they collide you have a frictional force, much like when the balloon rubbed on my shirt, meaning that some of those particles become positively charged and some of them become negatively charged. Now, the negatively charged particles tend to group together at the bottom of the cloud, although you can have some positive down there, and positive charges tend to group together at the top of the cloud. Now, that means that in our experiment just now, the negatively charged balloon is a bit like the base of a cloud with negative charge. But unlike the balloon, the cloud can't come down and rub itself on the grass and then pick the earth up with it. So something else has to happen. And in fact, what happens is the charge keeps on building up and building up to the point where the air can't hold any more charge. It becomes saturated. And at this point, it starts to break down. It's a process called ionization. And what it means is that the air, which normally isn't conductive, starts to become a little bit conductive just in the pockets of air that are at the base of that cloud. And so that allows small amounts of charge to start trickling down from the cloud towards the earth. Now, at the same time, the same thing happens at the ground. Positive charges rush to the surface, then the air can't hold any more of that charge, and so they start to break down the air and trickle through the air. And so you have these negative, what are called leaders, coming down from the cloud, and positive, what we call streamers, coming up from the ground. And if a leader and a streamer meet, like they are in the middle here, then that completes the electrical circuit and allows a whole load of charge to move very quickly from one place to another, in this case, from the cloud to the ground. And this is how a lightning bolt forms. Now, there are different types of lightning. We tend to think of lightning starting at the cloud and going down to the ground. We didn't put too much time into coming up a name for that because we called it cloud to ground lightning. But it's not the only type, in fact. You can have it the other way around, going from the ground up to the cloud. And there are a couple of other types. In fact, combined, those two types of lightning only account for about 10% of lightning strikes. 90% don't involve the Earth at all. They're all up in the cloud. They're either inside a cloud, which is called intra-cloud lightning, so the charge is just moving from one place to another within the same cloud. And it's the same process taking place. You still have that sort of zigzag that we're familiar with, but you can't see it. because the cloud's in the way. So it looks like the whole cloud lights up or the whole sky lights up, and we often refer to this as sheet lightning. And sometimes you have cloud to cloud or inter-cloud lightning as well. And together they comprise about 90% of lightning strikes that exist. So that's a little bit about lightning, but why do we care in the aerospace industry? Well, the reality is that planes fly through the sky and they get hit by lightning. In fact, every aircraft gets struck by lightning about once per year. So let's find out what happens. So here we have a Boeing 747, and as it flies over this tower here, it's going to be struck by lightning. We'll be able to see what happens. So if we watch that again in slow motion, you can see that the lightning bolt goes into the front of the plane and out of the back of the plane all the way down to the ground. That lightning current is still going from the cloud all the way down to the ground, but it's passing through the plane on its way down. So what happens to the plane? Well, that plane is made out of metal. Metals conduct electricity, so that lightning current can just go all the way around the outside of the plane without causing any damage to the plane or without causing any harm to anybody inside the aircraft. It's perfectly safe. And this has been the case for metal aircraft over decades. But in the last decade or so, we've started making aircraft out of non-metals, out of composite materials like carbon fiber, which is a type of plastic, because it's very light and it's very strong. If we can make planes much lighter, then that means that they're more energy efficient, they need less fuel, which is better for the environment, and of course, it costs less to fly. But carbon fiber has an electrical conductivity about 1,000 times less than aluminium, which we were using before. This could be a problem because you need that conductive layer to send that electrical current around the outside of the plane. So what the industry has done is embedded a layer that looks like this. This is a thin layer. It's like a mesh or a foil, in this case made out of copper, which is embedded into the surface of the carbon fiber before the paint's put on. And this provides your conductive layer of metal around the outside of the plane, so that when it is struck by lightning, which continues to happen, that lightning can safely travel around the plane without causing any extra damage. I hope you found that interesting. Do get in touch. I'm at Rhys_Phillips on Twitter, and do stay tuned to the Global Science Show.